Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So today we're going to talk about Portland and it going nationwide and what would happen if the Trump administration decided to read their own manuals. I've talked about it the last few days, pointed out that they're ignoring the manuals or they haven't read them. They're ignoring best practices. They're ignoring their experts who get paid very, very well. And they're making a lot of mistakes because of it. And some of the mistakes are actually making the situation worse. Along the way, I've had a lot of people ask me why I'm trying to help them, why I'm pointing this out. I'm obviously on the side of the people in Portland, so why would I want to point them to the manuals? Because the manuals don't say what you think they might say. Trump's response is based on the public perception of what people think should be done in a situation like this. The public perception of how to manage a movement like this. The problem is that perception is wrong. I don't want to put too fine a point on this, but every move that the Trump administration has made, without exception, is explicitly advised against. Every move. This happens a lot in stability operations. The public demands immediate results. Therefore, politicians demand immediate results without understanding what's going on. And they get their immediate results. Failure. Every time. This is not a conventional thing. There is no 100-hour ground war here. This takes time. Patience. It's like one of those finger traps. The harder you fight against it, the stronger it gets. In fact, if this was to go to the next level, which Trump's actions may take it to that, the manuals say you need to be ready to commit for 6 years. It takes time. It takes time. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about this as if it was happening overseas rather than in Portland. Because when we get to the end, there's some concepts that people are familiar with them happening overseas, but when you talk about them happening in the U.S., the idea just kind of eludes us. It seems weird. So we're going to talk about this as if it was occurring overseas. Okay, so we're running a stability operation. There's people in the streets. They've been there 60 days. What do? Nothing. Nothing. You don't do anything. Your goal is to stop it from escalating. That's your goal. Your goal is to stop it from turning into the I word. So you don't do anything. You're there to stop it from becoming violent. And I know there are people who are saying, it's already violent. No, it's not. No, it is not. These are the same people who think they're ready for a revolution. In that context, no, it's not. It's a calm Tuesday night that doesn't even make the news. If you are dealing with a grievance-driven movement, which this is, you have to allow them to speak their grievances. It's in the manual. So you don't do anything. Trump's response has been a concept called iron fist, put it in quotes, okay? It fails. It always fails. It's not what you do. The manual that I've been referencing up until today, that's the entry-level course. That's 101. There are more advanced texts that are available for policymakers. The manual I've been talking about is for the average soldier, so everybody's on the same page and has a general idea of what's going on. The more advanced texts that are actually put out by DoD, they're not publicly available, to my knowledge. However, in something that can only happen in the United States, most of the information contained in them isn't developed by DoD. It's developed by outside contractors, civilians, academics, consultants, weirdos, to stick with the language of the channel. One of the big ones is called RAND, and they do most of the work on this particular subject. I'm going to put a link down below that it runs through all of the different strategies, and it talks about which ones and what combinations they should be used and all of that stuff. We're at the beginning, before it actually goes into the I word, right? The ones that are applicable here are called hearts and minds and pacification. Those are the ones that would work here. Now, without getting too far into it, there are differences between these two, but they're very subtle. For our purposes today, they're the same thing. Those are the overriding themes. And the idea here is that you would secure the area. And by secure, I don't mean clear. I mean just secure it. Make sure everybody stays safe. Limit injury. That's the idea. Okay? And then you develop. Now, we'll get to what that means in a second. While you're doing this, because it is a grievance-driven movement, you allow redress of grievance in the manual. Okay? You allow that to happen. Now, me, because I am sympathetic to the people in Portland, I think all of their grievances should be addressed. Realistically, when you're just talking about managing it, you really only need to do one or two. Okay? You need to do a good portion of their grievances, but you don't have to do them all. Okay, so that keeps it from growing. Now we get to the development, and this is where people gasp. We're used to seeing it overseas. If we're trying to win hearts and minds, pacify, what do we do? What do we do? Build schools, hospitals. We provide health care, education, infrastructure, fresh water. That's what we do. When it's overseas, for geopolitical reasons, we have no problem providing people with this. But when we're talking about it in our own country, well, then it's just, oh, we can't do that. We do it overseas all the time. Provide relief, feed the homeless. Provide health care. Provide health care. Help with economic development to address income inequality, raise the standard of living. This is all stuff we do overseas during one of these campaigns. But for some reason, we can't do it here. And it's a bias. See, we're willing to address those things over there because we're like, well, you know, they've got a backward government. Of course, their police needs reform. Of course, they don't have this stuff. But here in the U.S., we're number one. We're number one. At what? At what? This country actually needs a lot of the infrastructure development that happens during stability operations overseas. If we addressed some of that, just as it happens overseas, it calms things down. It increases the standard of living. It makes people happier. These are things that would need to be done if they were following the manuals. It's what they'd be doing. I know it's not glamorous, it's not tough, it's not violent, but it wins. That's how you win something like this. No masks, no shields, no batons, no vans. That is explicitly advised against. You build. Because your goal is to stop it from becoming violent. If the people want change, you give it to them. Why? Because those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. This isn't a new theory. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.